Hello everyone, and welcome back to my Workbench series. In this video, I'm going to be learning and exploring setting up my plane, which will include sharpening the plane blade, but also tuning it once it's reinserted back into the plane body. So for this first part, I need to pop off the cap here using the cam, and then take out the blade. There's a little bit of shavings as I was messing around with this, just trying to explore and figure it all out. So what I'm going to do is use the cap to undo the screw here and separate out the plane blade, being careful not to nick the blade at all on the on this chip breaker here. Now the recommendation I've seen for these diamond sharpeners is just to use glass cleaner as a lubricant. So I'm just going to spray this down. I zoomed in on the sharpeners for this step. Now the guideline I saw from Paul Sellers would be to use just basic glass cleaner as a lubricant on the sharpening stones. What we're then going to do is take the blade and basically rest it on the back end of the blade, and then just raise the angle until you can feel the angle of the blade. And then we're going to push it back and forth along here, basically until we can feel a burr develop. So it's pretty easy to find that angle actually. As I work the plane back and forth, I'm trying to cover the whole surface of the stone, so as the stone wears over time, it wears evenly. And basically we just want to do this long enough so we can feel a burr develop on the front. Thankfully I've had some experience doing sharpening with kitchen knives on a whetstone, so I know what that feels like, and I feel pretty confident that this will be okay. Now a lot of people, Paul included on YouTube, will say that they like to basically round over the edge of the corners on their plane blades. I believe this is to make sure that the corners don't dig in or catch on the wood, but I'm not entirely sure, and I'm not terribly confident in my ability to do that quite yet, so I'm going to leave it straight for now. Moving over then to the fine stone, I'm just going to repeat that process and work it back and forth to further refine that burr. Okay, I think that's pretty good. So then moving on finally to the superfine. Great, so I'm really happy with this burr. Now, there are some on YouTube who will say that you should basically put a thin roller on the plane, or sorry, on the stone, and then use that to get a slight angle on the back of the plane. I think Paul Sellers disagrees and says he's never really found a need or a purpose for that in his experience, and so for the sake of simplicity I'm going to go with that recommendation. And so what I'm going to do is set the plane blade flat on the stone and then pull to pull off that burr. Great, I'm super happy with that. It looks like it worked perfectly. Reassembling the plane is going to essentially follow the reverse of those steps. So we're first going to put the chip breaker back together with the plane, being careful again to avoid the tip. So then we're going to slide the chip breaker up until there's just a couple of millimeters below the surface of the plane. Then I'm going to use the cap to tighten up that assembly. And grabbing my plane, I'm going to reinsert this assembly first and basically try to eyesight make sure it's roughly aligned, and then put the lever cap back on. Again, trying to make sure everything looks aligned. And so the final step will be tuning this, which essentially is making sure that the plane sticks out evenly across so I get even shavings. The first of two methods I'm going to explore is one from Paul Sellers. Now, what he recommends is taking a board that is significantly smaller than the width of your plane, and then playing it on one side and the other, and use that to tell the thickness of your shavings and adjust the position of the lever. Now, I don't obviously have a vise on a workbench yet that I can use to hold this, so I'm forced to basically sit on the floor and put the piece up against the wall. And so what then I'm going to do is stick it along, and I'm not barely getting any shavings on the right side. If we try the left, I'm getting actually a reasonable shaving. So what that means is I actually need to slide this position, the position of the adjustment, over a little bit to the left. And that seems pretty even there. I'm going to actually extend the blade of the plane a little bit more, just so I can confirm that that is a good setting. It still seems to be a little bit more on the right, but I'm not quite sure. There we go. So actually, no, that does seem to be pretty even thickness across. And so I think I'd be happy with that. The second method I want to try looks pretty cool to me. What it involves is basically taking a small piece of wood and then sliding it along the sole of the plane, especially at the two extremes, and checking where you're getting shavings, then basically using that to adjust the position of the adjustment lever. And so I'm just going to work out the blade of the plane until I'm just getting shavings. So I'm getting a little bit of shaving on the right side, but nothing on the left quite yet. So I'm going to work it out just a touch more. And I'm also going to move this adjustment over to the right, as it needs to go in the same direction as where you're getting the larger shavings. So I seem to be getting a shaving on all of the, both sides of the blade. They look to be pretty even. I'm going to back it off just a hair so I can do this again and see if one side is actually getting less taken off than the other. And it looks pretty even, so I'm quite happy with that. It's definitely a little bit simpler of a method, or a little bit more practical when you don't have a workbench built yet. So with that process done, the blade's all tuned up and it's ready to go.